The Movie Preview Critic, informing and entertaining your movie world.
What's up, good movie lovers? Welcome to Movie Night. Today, in honor of the recent release of Terminator Salvation, I want to start a little movie night series here of the first three Terminator films. Today, we'll be taking a look at the first one from 1984, the one that made Arnold Schwarzenegger the most popular movie star on the planet and launched James Cameron's career and redefined action science fiction and challenged everyone in the movie industry to do better stories and better special effects. But stories based in character, which supposedly, or according to many of the reviews for Terminator Salvation, I haven't seen it yet. Shame on me, especially because I'm a huge Terminator 1 and 2 fan. The kind of knock against it is that it's all special effects and no character. So let's take a look at this first movie and we'll look at Terminator 2. A couple of movies that set the standard or put the challenge down for all science fiction movies, and really just all movies in general, should follow this rule. No matter what the genre, you base it in character first, characters and emotions and story, and then you worry about all the decorations, all the effects. If you've listened to any previous movie night, it works the same way as an audio commentary would on a DVD, except you do the syncing. Since copyright issues can cause some problems, I'm just choosing to do the audio only. So if you have a copy of the movie at home on DVD or Blu-ray, maybe VHS, I still have my Terminator 2 Deluxe Edition on VHS, two VHS tapes. The first tape is the movie, and the second tape is all the trailers and cutout footage, deleted scenes, all that kind of stuff. So grab your copy of the movie, and I will give you the sync moments or the cues on when to play it, and I'll just let you know throughout the commentary here where we are, or where my counter is at least when I'm watching the movie. But in general, don't worry too much about being at the exact same spot because I tend to kind of pinball all around different areas with these ideas. So if we're watching the movie and there's a scene that comes up and the Terminator is doing something and it brings up some thoughts about Arnold Schwarzenegger, don't pause the movie or try to wait until I return to talking about the scene that you're actually watching. Just let it go all the way through, and hopefully any important points about the movie will be covered eventually. So just let it play once we sync up, and I'll kind of give cues throughout. So with that, let's take a look at this. Go ahead, hopefully it's ready in your DVD player. If not, then just pause this now, and once you have the menu screen up, go ahead and press play. And the MGM Lion should be roaring. So you might hear this in the background. I'm playing the movie now. And let's just get into this. James Cameron got his start in the late 70s, early 80s. He's probably most famous for getting his start with Roger Corman. He did some effects for one of his movies. I don't know exactly the title of it, but he had his directing debut with Piranha 2, which I think H. Wood is remaking Piranha. They're going to make it in 3D. So just shows you how far they're stretching for new ideas. But he actually got fired off the set for Piranha 2. But he met Lance Henriksen, made some good contacts on that, and was able to get some funding. He worked with a woman by the name of Gail Ann Hurd, who later became his wife, I think. She was a producer, and they funded Terminator. Let's just get right into this here. I'm at about 55 seconds into it, and just a scene that just blows you away. Very reminiscent of like the opening of Star Wars, which obviously redefined science fiction storytelling. But here it just gets you into the story. I remember watching this, as I mentioned in the review, must have been like 10 or 11 in my living room, because this is 84. So I think by 86, 87 it was on network TV, obviously with the bad editing, cutting out any rated R kind of moments, and the voiceover, just getting rid of any vulgarities. But I mean, this moment is just awesome. You just have all these human skulls on the ground and these huge machines and laser blasts. In 84, it was still pretty impressive. In 86, even, because you really just had Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi as kind of just setting this new standard for effects and all that. Um, Even at that point, with those three movies out, no one really stepped up to the plate to kind of challenge those films in terms of I don't know, the scope of the story and obviously the effects, especially with little models being used and all that. So this opening sequence here, it's about a minute long, but it just totally sets the mood. And I remember being really disappointed when that scroll came up where it's like, the battle will be fought here in our time. And I was like, no, stay over there. I want to see these machines and people fighting them. And that really kind of, I think for, anyone who's a Terminator fan and loves the movies, Terminator Salvation is really kind of this culmination, right? We've been waiting, it's 2009 right now, so 25 years to see that opening shot, the very first footage of the Terminator franchise. We finally get to live in that world for an entire movie. So I'll wait till I see the movie to kind of give some opinions about that. But so let's hope that they don't mess it up, that McGee and company don't ruin. It's just like a volleyball just being set perfectly for a spike. It's like, how can you mess it up? How can you mess this up? Let's really talk quickly about the title sequence here, and the music. The music, again, the more I watch movies and the more I listen to soundtracks, music plays such a huge part in terms of if the movie is a success or not. Think about your favorite movies. More than likely, all of them have soundtracks that are memorable. They're probably scored by James Horner or John Williams or someone. But a lot of great movies have great scores. So this opening sequence where it's just these big letters, you never see the whole title to the very end. It's almost like a little, I don't know, metaphor, kind of just a setup for Schwarzenegger, right? He's just this huge force that's coming to get you, and you never really see the whole name until the very end. And just the music is really setting the pace. It has a very Jaws kind of quality, dun 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 dun, and here's like dun 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 dun. I really think that it kind of sounds like the Terminator's heartbeat, right? Obviously, he doesn't have one, but it's very much like this robotic kind of a life force, and it's like this foreboding, like dun 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 dun. If you want to say it's almost like a Jason Voorhees kind of his breathing, like the ch 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 ka ka ka, kind of another style. And a lot of people have compared or said that Terminator in a way is kind of like a sci-fi horror film where you have the Michael Myers or the Freddy Krueger, pick your, well, at this point Freddy, I think he just might have come out in theaters and become part of our consciousness. But here we have the awesome introduction of the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Again, we're going low angle in a lot of horror movies. If you just want to, and just filmmaking in general, if you want to have someone be intimidating, you go low angle so they're kind of like hovering over us. And Schwarzenegger is only like, I don't know, 5'7" or something. He's not a super tall guy. And in his films, he comes off as like, being 6'5" or something. And just a great shot of an introduction, no words, just the way that he's walking, and the music. The music really sets up immediately what he's like because you see him, and then again that kind of metallic heartbeat, Jason Voorhees kind of sound, duh, 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 duh. It makes you nervous. So a great example of a soundtrack enhancing. Soundtrack should just be there to kind of give us cues. It shouldn't overpower us and control our emotions. The soundtrack really is kind of a direct route into our feelings. So movies that we really connect with probably have really great soundtracks. And let's just talk about this scene here. We've got that is Bill Paxton, who would later, 2 years after this, be in Aliens as Hudson, one of my favorite movie characters in general. And here we have the punk movement, right? We've got three punks with the kind of bad 80s fashion. Looking back now, kind of it's very laughable. Most of this movie holds up. Definitely feels a little dated, but it just has this quality, this I don't know, tech kind of horror, sci-fi horror thing, where it doesn't really feel all that out of sync if you're watching it. You don't kind of laugh it up. It very very much feels what's the John Carpenter movie? Escape from New York. You kind of get this desolate sort of city. It could be the future, it could be the past, kind of like this nowhere zone. But just pay attention to the way Schwarzenegger was introduced. Let's just talk about the filmmaking here. Just again, he just stands up, power, no emotion, and now we're going to get the introduction of the human. Now, again, one great thing about this movie, we're about 9 minutes into it. What is that? 7 minutes. And the first 30 seconds was like the logo and all that kind of stuff. So let's say 6 minutes. We've have barely any dialogue in this movie, aside from the, give me your clothes and, F you, a-hole, and him with the punks. There's no dialogue. Everything is visual, and that's really the strength of the movies, of cinema. We have to be active participants in the movie. Dialogue is the least important thing in a movie. You got to go back to when the cinema started, there was no sound, right, till the late 20s with the jazz singer. So there had to be a skill of communicating story information to the audience, and the audience had to learn how to watch moving pictures, and moving pictures that when edited combined and they made a story. So there's a little side dialogue here and there, but there's really no overall story dialogue going on in terms of, well, who are these people? And that's a great thing about this movie so far. About 10 minutes in, 8 minutes in right now, and you don't know really what's going on. Okay, there's some dude who just showed up, came through some kind of teleportation device, didn't really talk a lot, and he just like punched it. And that was another great visual cue of how strong this thing is, how strong Schwarzenegger's Terminator is. You don't know he's a robot yet. Maybe he's just some enhanced human or something. But he was able to take out these three guys like it was nothing. And we get a punch through the chest, and his fist is on the other side. In 1984, what had there been any kind of visual like that? Which is another challenge of all movies. Oh, here's a great moment. What's the date? So that just, the characters in the moment behaving as they should. They have an objective, they want something, and whenever they talk, everything should be related to getting that. So he needs to make sure that he's come back to the right time. Now, we don't know the whole story about him being sent back from the future and all this yet. But just by asking that question, we get a little piece of the puzzle. If you watch something like Lost on TV, any kind of mystery show, Fringe, which, happen to be both J.J. Abrams shows, or X-Files or Twilight Zone, stuff like that, you don't get all the pieces right away. It's very much like you're making the story puzzle with your mind. So you just pay attention. How do the characters act? What do they say? And you slowly start to see the overall picture. And that's the fun in going to the movies. The best movies make you an active participant. You don't want to just sit back and have everything spoon-fed to you. So right now, we're coming up on 10 minutes into the movie, and we know, okay, both these guys came from the future naked. We don't know it's the future yet, but they arrived naked. One didn't say anything and didn't appear to be hurt by the process. Now, when Reese came through, he was like, he's sore, he's vulnerable, so that there's a difference here. We're going to find out he's human and the other one's not. But just pure visuals, you would get the sense of the power of each of these characters. And that's just great filmmaking. You don't say anything, you just bring us into that world and you let us pick up on these cues. Just visual information. Just like whatever doctors or psychologists say that 90% of communication between humans is nonverbal. It's all just when someone walks in a room, how does everyone react, that kind of stuff. And that's the power of filmmaking. So here we have a nice quick action sequence. It's nothing too outrageous, but Reese comes out of it with the shotgun, he's dressed, and now he's on the street. Now we don't know if he's the bad guy. He obviously doesn't seem like it. The sense that we're getting from the visuals is that he's not. The other guy, went up to someone and killed him, and this guy, with the police officer, he just asked him what year, and he ran away. He could have shot him. And here we have another great little visual setup. And pay attention to how each scene really goes in, just really moves into the next one. It really is kind of this whole setup and payoff thing going on, which is a key of filmmaking, where we have to pay attention scene by scene. There's there's always a moment when you're watching a movie where you can just stop paying attention, where you can be drawn out of it. So a movie's job is to just keep the pace moving, keep you interested, and just, get rid of the attention that your brain has for the four walls that are around you, the people sitting next to you, and make you feel like you're in this movie, that you're just sitting there invisibly next to these characters. So we introduce our third character, and look at the music, right? We have this kind of like this, I don't know, like a fairy tale kind of nice and innocent music. In the meantime, we've had like dun 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 and dun 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 dun. And so it's just a great contrast. And we introduce the third major character of the film, Sarah Connor. So she punches into work, and the next scene, the music is back. Every time, and we got the low angle again. Again, that visually just creates that kind of intimidation. And then in terms of our ears, that audio level of sensory inputs being attacked by this foreboding, this really scary kind of music. And then look at the visuals here again. He's not talking at all, and he's just busting through a window. There's something obviously not right about this guy. And of course, in '84, you see the posters, you get the previews for this, so he's the robot guy. So that's not necessarily a big surprise. But in terms of filmmaking, you have to keep, once you set everybody in motion, making a film and introducing characters, setting a story in motion, it's kind of like, I don't know, horses at a racetrack. Once the gun goes off, you want to keep track of where every horse is at, every character, every story element that you let loose. So we've introduced the Terminator, we've introduced the Protector and Kyle Reese, and now we're introducing their objective, the mother of the savior of the future, of the human race. So now expect cutting back, and as soon as we cut away from one, now again, another low angle, and we've got the music again. So, it's just this continuation of establishing in us the perception of this character. And I like how it just cuts to he's already getting the guns. Love the way that Schwarzenegger says the words right. And again, this movie really just blew him up in terms of popularity. He's actually 37 when this movie's made, and so it's kind of late in terms of a star's career to really just take the world by storm. In the late 70s, early 80s, he had made the Conan the Barbarian movies. I think there's two of them, and then maybe right before this or right after it, he did Red Sonja, which the Conan character was in there. So three of those movies, and just some other ones that really didn't get him a lot of attention. He actually had a lot of criticism for his heavy accents. Love this. That's such a great line. You can't do that, pal. Wrong. And let's just talk about that real quick in terms of like quotes and movie-worthy, movie-memorable sort of lines, dialogue. This really kind of established that whole movement of 80s action becoming very, I don't know, kind of packaged, if you want to say. This is '84, so action movies really hadn't been figured out totally yet. Now, if you go before this, probably the most action-y kind of films, other than the Star Wars movies, you'd have to go to war films, any World War II kind of movies, Dirty Dozen, movies like that. This film really kind of establishes the bigger-than-life hero or villain, and then the very quotable action movie kind of, here's a moment when you turn to the camera and you say something that everyone's going to remember. But the important thing, at least, for me, is that it doesn't try to do it with a wink to the camera. It's doing it because the characters are in the moment fighting for what they want, and they're unaware that people are watching them. I use this rating system of CGI porn or dialogue porn. Porn is basically something that's done knowing that people are watching it. You're doing it for like this exhibition. But if it's happening, in the moment and it's true and you're not acting like anyone's watching, then it's something genuine. And let's talk about this. Let's watch this scene right here. Sarah Connor, and he just, boom, hits the door open. That music is back again. Nice little slow motion and the red dot. And you don't need to see the blood today. We'd probably see her head explode. But again, we know what happens. We know what that's looking like. And we get more information here that the Terminator is after Sarah Connor. He didn't have to turn to anybody or radio Skynet on his future walkie-talkie. Skynet, I'm here. I'm looking for Sarah Connor. No, no dialogue. We see him looking through the phone book, and we see him kill the first Sarah Connor, and we get her reaction. We get her emotional reaction, which is an important thing. At this point, it's not, established that he's after, or at this point, it's not established that she should be worried because, okay, another Sarah Connor got killed. But once the second one gets knocked off, then she's obviously in trouble. So about 17 minutes in, we cut back to Reese here, and he's hot wiring a car. So again, we see his skills. He knows how to pick locks, use a gun, climb up fire escapes, all that kind of stuff. So he's a very physical guy. He's got some maybe kind of army training or something, and he's hot wired a car now. Great shot right here. Love how we get just the image of the machine in the headlight, and that's going to trigger something in the character's memory. Again, there's no dialogue. And we get the tracks, and then the pan down here. Such great filmmaking. Ready? Okay, and now we're into the dream. We're into the flash forward. And that music returns. That music, again, sets a tone for another time frame. And here we go, Reese. And it's really important. This is something I'm hoping that Terminator Salvation's going to remember, at least, of why the first two movies worked so well, is that we have a character's perspective. If Reese is in here, and we're just seeing some random people run away from these hunter killers and all these machines, it's cool, but it's more powerful on us if the memory is from a character that we're getting involved with. And again, we're 18 minutes into the movie, and there hasn't been a lot of dialogue. It's mainly been Sarah Connor and her friend, and the Terminator said a couple things here and there. But in 18 pages, 19 pages of a screenplay, most everything is description. It's amazing. So the power of movies is always in the visual. So you ask yourself as you're watching this, and just any movie, are you being allowed to kind of be a co-creator of the story? You're getting the images. Every scene is another piece of the puzzle, and you're the one figuring out, well, okay, what's the Rorschach test here? What is it coming together as? So again, great action sequence here. Nice little futuristic kind of bomb, and it's all done with miniatures. There's obviously no CGI back then. So there's that texture, right? There's that kind of quality. And then kind of a interesting explosion there. She gets lasered and there's no guts or anything. Just kind of a very dry sort of a explosion. But it's all miniatures, and there's that great quality to it. I'll always like the first three Star Wars movies better than the last three because the effects, it seems too fake. It's too artificial. Yoda has a good quality as that little doll. And this is just a fun little, great action sequence, and you're like, man, I want to see more of this future. Make it look like this. And in the previews for Salvation, it's doesn't look like this, but I guess you can't blame McG for wanting to create his own signature. And again, all the scenes here for the future are at night, so you don't really see the day. And obviously, if you're independently making this movie, it's not financed by some big studio. You need to keep costs down, so during the day when you can see everything, you would need more props to fill the space because our vision is that much further. So at night, everything can be closed, and obviously that was made on a set. So Reese wakes up from his nightmare, and again, it opens with his perspective and it comes out to his perspective. So we get a sense of, okay, here's this guy's background without anything being said. He's fighting against machines and he's losing friends. And then now we're cutting back to Sarah Connor's track. So again, these are our three main horses of the movie. It's a 3-horse race at the beginning, at least. We're in Act 1. And the characters are moving towards the objective. The main character, if you want to say it's Reese, he's the hero. And the villain, the bad guy, is the Terminator. And they're basically, this kind of goes back, since I was talking about the beginnings of cinema in terms of the visuals. This is a classic scenario. If you go back and watch the old footage of the evil bad cowboy guy with the whiskers tying the damsel in distress to the railroad tracks, then they cut to the train, the huge metallic evil train about to run her over, coming down the tracks, and you cut to the good cowboy, usually dressed in white, racing as fast as he can with his horse towards the girl and trying to rescue it. So basically, we have that same scenario. This is one of the oldest setups in movie history here, where we have Sarah Connor on the tracks, and Reese is the cowboy trying to rescue her, and the Terminator literally is the metallic evil monster train that's going to run her over. And that's something that's going to be used in Terminator 2 and Part 3, and I don't know, probably in Part 4, because it seems to be a signature of the franchise. But in the second one, you're going to have T1000 and T800 again running from both sides towards John Connor, and then in T3, you're going to have the female Terminator and the T800 again racing after John Connor, which is probably one of the reasons why that movie doesn't work, because it's a little bit too close to Terminator 2, and it's not new and fresh enough. Where Terminator 2 just totally took everything that worked about Part 1 and put a new spin on it. So that's a discussion for the movie night of Terminator 2. But for right now we set even another little story area in motion where we have the police officers. So we're focusing on 4 kind of quadrants right of the story, where now we have Lance Henriksen, soon to be Bishop in Aliens, another great, actor character from another awesome movie. So we establish them in motion. We have Sarah Connor here, and then we have Reese and the Terminator off screen. And that's another important part of filmmaking, where you don't need to see everything on screen. You establish the scenes where we know what the character needs in that moment, and you cut away, giving us that setup of what they're going to be doing and where they're going while we cut to somewhere else. So we know that Schwarzenegger, as the Terminator, is knocking off people named Sarah Connor. So as he killed the one woman, you can assume, okay, he's going to the next Sarah Connor. And then you have Reese searching for Sarah as well. So each scene where it cuts away from them, you want to have that setup of where can we expect them to go next. And when we cut back, we're paying off that setup. The most obvious place to see this is on TV, where you can really get a sense of it, because you have to have a really strong setup before commercial break so that you keep people there, so that when you come back, you're paying off the setup that held people there for 2 minutes of a word from our sponsor. So now we have Sarah. Her date gets broken because some 80s D-bag is too busy to hang out with her. And there was a nice little scene earlier with Matt giving the phone call, so nice little comedic element to the story too. And let's listen to the soundtrack here. Sarah's going to her scooter, and just kind of a little bit of a hint, right, of that Terminator heartbeat. And you don't know if he's there, if it's Reese. Just something foreboding. Again, another great example of music. And this is the horror movie where you have in Halloween, dun dun dun, or Nightmare on Elm Street, just that kind of that little high pitch piano going in the background, kind of just like almost like Freddy Krueger's footsteps, right? So scoring of a movie is so important to really convey the genre and the tone of it. So now we know Reese is the first to find her, and he had the advantage. Later we'll find out he had the photograph. And we cut back to the police here. So they, every person has an objective. The police want to find Sarah Connor. So now when you cut back, what's the new information that we're getting? What do these people in the moment want? And we're going to cut away with some kind of setup that we expect a payoff for in just a little bit. And I love how they establish the characters. Characterization in movies is really important. Can we get a sense of who the character is without 5 minutes of exposition? Without, here's what I like and here's who I am, and these sort of reality show confession cam moments. Because I always talk about that in terms of, they could be called window character moments, audience connection moments, confession cam, especially because reality TV has taken us over these last 10 years. Those moments are important. We need to know what the character's feeling, but the way to do it right is, how does the character feel about what's going on in the moment? Don't use these opportunities to connect with the audience. Don't use them for just sharing backstory information. A character is who they are, and if we pay attention closely enough, we will realize what happened to them in the past by their current actions. A simple example is, if a person walks by a dog and kind of crosses the street and wants to avoid the dog, maybe they were bit by a dog for some reason they don't like dogs, and that'll get a little story gear going in our mind. Okay, let's pay attention for that later. Maybe we'll get some kind of payoff. So everything visual. Don't tell us story, just show us. Let us put everything together. And here's a great moment here. She's having a pizza by herself. Now, I always had a question. I remember when I was little watching this. Why didn't they show the second woman get killed by Schwarzenegger? It'd be a great, visual, another Terminator doing the job. The answer probably is that it wasn't that different from the first murder. The first one was just kick the door down, shoot the person, and boom, terminated. The Terminator is not going to be creative. Again, it's that example of kind of that movie genre porn, where you're not doing something because an audience is watching. If this was made today, the Terminator would probably set up some kind of elaborate Rube Goldberg murder booby trap or something inspired by the Saw movies. Today producers have to ask, studios have to ask, well, what has come out before, and what will audiences recognize, and what can we give them more of that we think will lead to easy box office dollars. Doing something original is tough because there's nothing that proves that it works. There's no marketing information, no market research that can confirm, well, audiences are going to like this, which is the battle that we're in right now. If something's original, it probably comes from a place of inspiration, and that doesn't necessarily pay. And you have to wait until an audience responds and says, wow, this was great because it was new and fresh and kind of something that we all were sensing and something that was in the air and that we needed to see this kind of story. And once it succeeds, once it's proven, then of course H Wood's going to copy. But until then, good luck trying to get something original. You got to go with what's come before, hence all the remakes and adaptations. But that's another rant. For right now, let's just pay attention to this moment here. Sarah Connor looks in the phone book and sees that her name is next. So visually, we had the information earlier of the cops, and Paul Winfield, who you'll notice from other 80s movies, he kind of said, yeah, they're going to call him the phone book killer. So, and that kind of background there it's always a weird shot. Like, she's on the phone, and he's just kind of like this huge perv just like staring her up and down. But that's, again, that sense of you don't know who the killer is, or she doesn't know. She's looking everywhere and seeing danger. And now we see Reese following her. So, again, we have information that the main character doesn't, or that one of the main characters doesn't, and we feel that fear. It's awesome. It's really great filmmaking. And it's really confident filmmaking. It's filmmaking that isn't afraid that the audience is going to get restless. That's one great thing about older movies. I'm sure they don't look as crisp and whatever if they're black and white, or they look, kind of faded and dated. Before the Twitter, internet, instant communication, press a button, boom, information sent kind of thing. Before this notion that you can't sit in a theater and appreciate a movie that slowly unfolds. It has to get right to the action right away because everyone's got ADD. There's like this myth, I don't know, to me it's just like a bunch of BS, this myth of everywhere you look it's like, everyone's got ADD, we can't pay attention, we need to click and we need everything right away. No, dude, go to a movie, sit down, watch an old movie, and you'll find, hey, I don't have ADD. I could just watch this and slowly get brought into the film. Just like when I meet someone and go on a date or whatever, just hang out with a new friend, you could just slowly, okay, hey, what's your deal? Where do you come from? What do you like? Where'd you go to school? This information comes through a process. And a movie is very much like the same sort of experience. You go into it, you meet the characters, you experience them in their world, and in terms of a screenplay structure, a movie structure, usually within 15 to 30 minutes, there's some sort of adventure that's going to kickstart and take place. There's an inciting incident, a causal event where the main character now has to fight for something, pursue something, battle for something. So here's really the moment. 29 minutes into the movie, Sarah has entered the club, and the train, the Terminator train, and the good guy on the horse are gonna meet. And as we know, the good guy is gonna rescue her from the train tracks, but this is the train that doesn't, it's not confined to the tracks. It's going to be coming after her nonstop, and that's the great part of the movie, is that we feel that they're never safe. So I just wish films were a little more confident and not so afraid of taking their time to let us get to know people. And I think that's really one of the reasons that a lot of movies today don't stick with us, because they don't really deal with real characters. They don't go on journeys. We don't discover who they are. We just want them, getting in the jet stream, just taking off and speeding towards the end. And it's a fun ride, but it's like, I don't know, taking a cross country road trip with a stranger. Taking a road trip on a bus, on a Greyhound or whatever, and you never talk to anybody on there. You're just sitting there and looking out the window, and scenery is great, but it can be a little transformative and interesting if you talk with people and kind of go through a journey of your own. Again, the music is back. So Sarah makes the phone call, and then Schwarzenegger. I keep calling him Schwarzenegger, right? Well, in '84, Schwarzenegger was the Terminator. That was him for 4 or 5 years, until pretty much every movie he was in from 1984 till 1989. He had to say the line, "I'll be back." So you look at Commando, The Running Man, Raw Deal. He's always saying this line. It's like it became his tagline. It became dialogue porn. It wasn't a natural part of the story. It was more of his celebrity, and his perception was, okay, we need Schwarzenegger. If you're going to a film, he has to say, "I'll be back." So I'll talk about that moment when it naturally unfolds here. But it really became a force. In some movies it worked. I like it in Running Man. But it becomes comedic. You get into this self-parody kind of thing where the line becomes a joke. And I think it was maybe Total Recall, 1990. Another great, just sci-fi movie in general, where he did not say the line. So I think that might have broke the streak. And then here we have a little fight of him with the boyfriend, and again, machine versus man. There's no chance. And I like how we're just cutting back. You just see bits and pieces here. She's listening to another dated '80s song on headphones before the iPod, iPhone, all that kind of stuff. The original iPod, such a big deal when it came out in the late '70s, early '80s. And the music here, slow motion, right? The music matches the film speed, kind of. And we have her emotions, and we're again low angle. We're going low angle, so the Terminator seems like he's 7 feet tall. Just pay attention again. Every moment he's in, it's like low angle, close up, here, and going from the ground back up. Just this intimidating force, the shadow on the wall, and we don't show the gore. It's not important. We want the effect. We see her hand twitching. That's a lot more disturbing than just seeing a bunch of holes and blood. Just to see what it does to the body, and then we see a close up of her face. She's lifeless. And then we have the Terminator turn towards the answering machine. And now the scene opened up. Let's just talk about setup and payoff. The scene opens up with Schwarzenegger, right? He goes in, okay, he's going to take out Sarah Connor. Now we know who Sarah Connor is. He obviously doesn't. He takes out the roommate, and we're thinking, okay, great, he's going to get fooled. And then boom, Sarah calls. And that's just a nice little shot right there, him stepping on the headphones, of showing the weight, the Terminator weight. That he's a robot underneath, so he just kind of crushes it. It's just a great non-verbal way to convey some information. Again, it brings us into that reality. Now he has a picture of her. And now we see the picture of her, it's her, and then boom, it's her, talking with the police. And so she has a little objective here. Before the Sarah Connor report of murders, she really was kind of just going about her life. Now she has an objective, to become safe. Every character needs to be motivated in each scene, and every character needs to have their own personal objective and growth. We're all people. And I love Lost because the TV show, because it respects every character. It forces every character to become real for us, the audience. You know, they all have a backstory. They're all real flesh and blood people. They're not just props. Look at the background here. I love the dances. And then another great moment. Terminator comes in. He just moves people aside. You know, just he doesn't give a crap, and he just walks in. We have the another '80s song going, and then just watch this little move right here. Crunches the fist. The guy's on his knees. It's just the power. You know, we're just getting a sense of everything he does. And notice the camera now. The camera's level, and but the ceiling is so low. You know, you just get the sense that he's so intimidating still. You know, he's just powerful and close up. You know, anytime the face is that closed up to the screen, you know, you really get a sense. This is kind of a little bit coincidental here, but it's nice. And look at the dance moves. Just okay. There's going to be a guy with like a Miami Vice suit, I think, right there in the background. Miami Vice, I think, just came out the year that this movie came out, so Don Johnson was all the rage. Go ahead, Wikipedia him. I'm not going to explain who he is. But then I love how there's this dynamic going on right now. We, the audience, know that Kyle's the good guy, but Sarah doesn't. So it's a great little, you know, just rewatch this movie again, scene by scene. How does that information get puzzle pieced into our brains? Where at the same time when we know that he's helping her, there's the look at this dance. Terminator's coming through and just what is it? You just swing your arms together, your legs the other way. Okay, throw your arms up. Look at the flock of seagulls' hair. Notice how the environment sound right goes out, and we have the music coming out. It's like the Terminator focus, right? Like his mental processes, and then actually it's her process too. She's kind of like slow mo. Oh, what's this danger here? She wasn't expecting this guy. Love this action sequence right here. It's right on her head, the dot, and just his reactions. You know, okay, he's shot down. Then everyone runs out. Finger right. There we go. And it moves very robotically. Love it right here, the Uzi. Love this scene. It's so simple, but you know, just really gets your heart pumping. The neck movement here for Terminator is kind of weird, where he's like oozing. He's kind of doing this head shake. I just thought that was funny. And again, the objective Sarah Connor gets trapped. So we have the stakes here: the two people, the bad guy and the hero, fighting over her. And again, great journey for her, where she's kind of this weak kind of flower, right? She's just this, and look I love how fast this is right here. No slow mo, boom. And now we're gonna have one of the more famous lines from the movie. Let's just take a moment to listen to this. Reese says it to her. That is the second line of dialogue that Reese has said in 36 minutes of this movie. He asked the cop what year it was, and then right now, come with me if you want to live. And then a great shot, low shot of Terminator coming up. And now again, that line is not. It became popular because of the moment, because of it just came off as cool. But Reese isn't. You know, if that was made today, Reese would be like looking at the camera, winking his eye, like, "Come with me if you want to live." Like. He's trying to be cool. We don't want that, dude. And then we get the first vision of the Terminator in terms of the way he sees the world. So that's 37 minutes in. A couple years later, that similar sort of process would be used with Predator, another great Schwarzenegger film, where you have Predator vision. But here now we get more into the robotic aspect of the technology. And I can't really remember a movie where you saw that kind of effect. Again, let's do Star Wars, right? C-3PO or R2-D2. You never went into their vision. So it's just another great way to connect us with the Terminator. And just another solid action sequence here. It's what makes it really great from my point of view is that it's all real. You know, there's no green screen. There's no wires like the kind of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, that you can just computerize, erase later on. Everything's really being done. So there's that quality of these older movies that you just can't get nowadays. That stuntmen put their lives in danger, put their bodies in harm's way just to give us a little bit of entertainment. Harold Lloyd, from the 20s, 30s. He was a silent film actor, kind of Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton. You probably have seen a Harold Lloyd image where he's hanging from a clock, like high above from a building. He actually lost one of his fingers doing something with explosives in one of his films. So these people, put their lives on the line for our entertainment. But just a great, simple action sequence here. Now Kyle's finally going to start talking a lot. But notice, again, the character only speaks when he wants something. He speaks when he has an objective. I love how his character is getting established here. And then Sarah Connor, she doesn't know what's going on. She saw this guy get up. Now she's scared. She wants to escape. It's a great little stunt drive in there. And the music, right? The music is also, it's with us. It's accentuating what we're feeling. Our hearts are beating kind of faster. Here we go. So now we get information. 40 minutes into the movie. We know the objective. But again, you've been targeted for termination. It's just confirming what we already know. We know this Terminator's after her. Love the shot here of Schwarzenegger. It's starting to moves very mechanical. And we have his voice impersonation. Scene by scene, piece by piece. This movie is just great filmmaking. So now, again, they're providing us with backstory information, but they're doing it by fighting in the moment. All movies, whether they're horror or action, adventure, here sci-fi, characters are fighting for what they want. If there's a couple characters in a scene, 3 or 4, however many, characters are not there to just talk about, their favorite sports team or how the weather is. Kyle wants Sarah to believe him, to believe that he's there to protect her. She just wants to get out of here. She doesn't know what's going on, and she just doesn't believe what he's saying. And this is a little device that the Terminator movies tend to use. The third one did it. I don't remember too much. I haven't seen that movie that much. Terminator 1 and 2, I've probably seen each of these movies like 30 times. Terminator 2 probably about 50 times. Just love watching these films when I was younger. But how do you keep the audience, how do you keep their attention and provide information? Well, you should do it through dramatic moments, right? Characters fighting for what they want. But characters on the move is also good. You don't want them sitting down for coffee. So you'll notice in T2, when John Connor is on the bike, on the motorcycle with the T800, that's when he's like, the T1000 liquid metal and providing all the information. Here, they're in a race. So we get it on the move. And TV does this, 24 is probably the best example of any other kind of show that would use cell phones to communicate most information. Would be the most boring show ever. But here, you do it as, Jack is running around, he's on the phone. The X-Files really did that kind of in the late 90s when cell phones became popular. It was a lot of Mulder and Scully at the scene. Hey Mulder, I'm looking at some, fluke man, give me some information. Mulder's somewhere else in cell phone stuff. So now the car, okay, we come to a rest. And the great thing about this moment is that we want to hear everything he has to say because the movie's been so quiet, because it's been all visual. We're just in the theater, like at the front of our seats, right? Just right on the edge, listening to every word. Tell us the truth, because we know it's real. We saw him come through. The great thing that this movie does is we are with Sarah on her journey from skepticism to belief. And here, you're from the future too, and she runs, and he grabs her. This is a nice little moment too, where she bites him, and look at him. He's just, okay. He's been through war. He doesn't flinch like most of us would. And that's just a great line. Terminators don't feel pain. I do. Another character-based, in-the-moment line. And I love this part right here. Let's just listen to it. So we will not stop until you are dead. Such a great and in terms of, like, let's say a horror movie or where you have a strong opponent, you make him stronger, him or her stronger, by obviously when they're on screen showing them do what they do. But when you start talking about them off screen, everyone's just talking about how powerful they are, how scary they are. It just increases the level of fear that we have whenever this person's back on screen. And now, boom, we cut back to the Terminator, and he even seems more robotic than he did before. Look at just the way the makeup is. It's very plastic. It's like it's like a glazed kind of plastic flesh, like a mannequin kind of thing going on. And especially now more than ever in the movie, he's moving more robotic than he did in the previous scenes, because now we have the information of, okay, it's confirmed. He's this killer from the future. He won't stop. He doesn't feel pity or remorse. So just visually now, it's in terms of our consciousness, we're aware of it, but it is visually being done. And it's like you could imagine Cameron being like, okay, Arnold, just start making your movements even more robotic now. Because before we weren't sure if you were human or not. So now Sarah's kind of trusting Kyle. This is a good story progression. She's starting to believe him. And, if anyone changes in this movie, it's really both of these characters in a way, because Kyle hasn't been able to experience this kind of a peaceful world. And he has, he falls in love with her later, and he's protecting her, not just because it's his job, but because, he has feelings for her. And then Sarah goes from this kind of just weak, kind of just average, girl who's just okay, just doing her thing, to becoming a real warrior, a mom who could really be the life giver of someone who's going to save humanity. She really starts to believe the story here. And then I love later on how there's this little twist where she doesn't believe him because the Dr. Silverman, kind of logically proves that he's crazy. So again, just watching this movie, you're like, I want to listen to this stuff. We got our information here. But it's more of Kyle, his objective. We need to convince Sarah that this is real, and I need to protect her. And then this just establishes the myth, right, for the whole series. And any kind of movie like this, just any movie in general, the work in terms of creating characters in a universe, it should be just as thorough as, let's say, a novel. Again, I keep using Lost as a great example, but any kind of series, X-Files, or any kind of series that tells a long overall story, you can tell if a series didn't know where they were going before it started. You can tell that series from the one that has a clear goal from the beginning, because each episode, each moment has a purpose. Whereas before, maybe some series, they're just kind of greenlit and they exist season to season, and they kind of make it up as they go along. If you're doing a story, you need to know about Skynet. You need to know about this future, how it got created, who's involved, and then you can go back and kind of trace all the characters that were involved. So if you're an aspiring filmmaker, storyteller, treat every character with respect, figure out the tapestry, what's the web of how everyone's connected, and then that's a nice little kind of a concentration camp World War II reference. And later we're going to see that in Terminator Salvation, right, when Kyle gets kidnapped and taken to the camp where they're making the T-800. So he's establishing this future where basically, the inspiration here is that the robots, the technology is basically like the Nazis in World War II. They're kind of just rounding up humans, exterminating them. So, the past can be inspiration for the future. And now, midpoint of almost the middle of the movie, roughly around 48 minutes. There's about another hour to go, but now she's going to be joining him. We understand what the overall mission for him is. We know what's at stake, and we've just opened up this bigger picture of this universe, and it's something that's explored through the next 3 films. I really hope Salvation lives up to it. And then again, Schwarzenegger, or the Terminator, keeps that metallic, robotic kind of look to him, and another great action sequence. Now let's just take an example right here. We had an action sequence leading into the garage, and now we have an action sequence leading out. What happened in the middle? Well, we had that let's call it the reality television confession cam moment. We had a character development moment. We had a window character moment. We, the audience, got to know more about Reese. We got to know more about Sarah in terms of what she's gonna do, but we got a little bit of connection to the characters. Now, it's almost like today, if this movie was made, that scene would be cut in half. There's a little bit of an overcrank or undercrank, right? Under which one is it for filmmaking? I think overcranking, where the film looks sped up. Right, the more frames that you film, the slower it goes. So the less frames you film, the faster it goes. So I guess it's an overcrank, but whatever. So there was a little fast moment there with the car to make it seem a little bit more intense. But we need this moment, and the problem with a lot of movies today is like these characters don't bother to do this. You can imagine that there's like some kind of screening. The movie's made, and the producers see the screen. They're like, okay, it's moving too slow. Cut that scene in half where Kyle's talking to Sarah about the future and all this kind of stuff. Just get the basic stuff out and just get us to this car chase. Well, the reason, because look, now she's actually worried about Reese. The reason, and now the Terminator is even more imposing. Where he has a little more power because they talked about the Terminator and Skynet, and we know what it's capable of. So we need those moments, and it's a real problem that a lot of movies today are just, I don't know if it's producers or someone, there's some kind of a thought in H Wood right now that we all have ADD and the audience can't sit through these kind of moments. When the truth is that those are the moments we look forward to. Those are the moments that we need. Because then we care about the characters. We become more afraid of the opponent. The Terminator is all the more scary to us now. And we start to explore our own humanity. You can't help but when you're watching a movie like this think, oh man, what if I was in that situation, or what if this actually happened? And then here we have kind of this great sequence where it's the battle for sanity, where Sarah believes what Reese said, but here's the doctor who's absolutely sure he's crazy. And we're going to see the great filmmaking here where, again, off screen, this interview has happened, and we're seeing it through Sarah's point of view. Why don't you show it? Why don't you take us to the moment of the Silverman interview? Well, because the interview is not that important. Number one, because we just got that information. Silverman is now going to get the same information that Kyle just provided to Sarah in the car. So we don't need to see it twice. You never need to have the same info presented twice in a movie. If you show it to us again, or we get a glimpse of it, what we need is a new perspective on it. Why are we seeing it again? Well, here we're going to see it because of Sarah's point of view. We're going to see the doctor convince her by taking the same story we all just heard and telling her that, yeah, it's all BS, and she believes it. And part of us, maybe we're like, oh yeah, but if we never saw the Terminator, we'd probably believe it too. And then here's another great classic scene here, and this kind of leads up to the whole sunglasses thing, like in the second movie where he gets the sunglasses right away at the beginning. Here the sunglasses happen because it's organic, because it's just a natural part of the story. And notice how the movie, again, going into this movie, you don't know what the exoskeleton looks like. So we're getting piece by piece, we're slowly going to see how this Terminator looks, so that at the end, it's a huge payoff. It's a big secret. And then the second movie, it's the T-1000, the liquid metal, that's slowly revealed to us. And that's probably why T3 doesn't really work, because whatever her TX or whatever she was called, I just call her like the T1 hottie or whatever. She's just a hot blonde girl with a T1000/T800 powers. She wasn't that different, and we had seen so many Terminator robots by then. It's like, you better blow us away or not. And that might be part of the problem for Terminator Salvation, is that they're using the new, fresh designs of robots to drag us into the theater, to get us interested. They're not using character development. Look at the gears, nice close-up. Obviously, it's Stan Winston doing the effects here, so it's right there, shot of just an arm and the effects. It's amazing. That shot is just gets your imagination going. You're like, wow, what does the rest of this thing look like? And notice, again, we're cutting back. We're keeping all the horses in motion here. We've got the Terminator repairing himself now. So when we come back, the repairs are going to be almost complete, and he's going to go off and search again. Again, this Terminator does not stop. He's always pursuing his objective. which might be the ultimate kind of the ultimate example for a movie. You know, if you're screenwriting or if you're movie making, the best way I've ever heard kind of a movie described is that it should be a simple story with complex characters. So again, the story here is very simple. A woman who's going to give birth to the future savior of humanity is targeted for termination. A robot pursues her trying to kill her. A human is sent back to protect her. Again, it's a classic scenario. And I really love this interrogation moment here because the doctor he has his own objective. He's very clear about what he wants. I want to prove that this guy's crazy. And just his tone, just everything he does, there's just this kind of cocky attitude behind him. And every question he asks him is just like, you're crazy, and you really, you can understand why he's doing what he's doing, but you really hate him because we, the audience, know, hey, this thing really exists. So there's this awesome dynamic going on where we, the audience, know what's really going on, but then we also see the characters growing and learning information. We know more than they do. And part of us is like, okay, we're kind of frustrated. We want them to already figure it out, but just to see the process of them getting to where we're at is great. But then on the other hand, there's also information we don't have. This is such a memorable moment here that comes naturally because of the story, because of who the Terminator is and what he needs to do, right? He needs to kind of look human to blend in, but he needs to repair himself as well. So it's not done, again, it's not just CGI porn, just done to kind of amaze us and give us these visual money shots. But it's so, again, early 80s were a time of big time horror movies, of gore. You had Halloween and Friday the 13th kind of ignited all, but once My Bloody Valentine, all these kind of Maniac, these movies just pushed the boundaries of blood and what the audience was expecting. Here's just a great shot. We've got and that looks really fake. I mean, the whole Terminator torso looks very rubbery. On the one hand, I guess you can kind of say, it helps him seem more more like a robot. But on the other hand, it's like, well, we saw those shots earlier, like right here, and then it cuts here, and Schwarzenegger, I mean, it looks way more human than we just saw. So, but there's kind of a nice little, for me, it's very endearing. I like that whole aspect. And then the machine guns under the bed are awesome. And then, of course, it's a Terminator, so he's not going to sleep even though it's nighttime, so he's back out riding on the motorcycle. But the sunglasses here are really important because the sunglasses were put on to conceal the damage that had been done to the eye, to make them seem more human. They weren't done, and the second movie already kind of moves towards that parody, right? In other videos I talk about the whole idea of like genre life cycle, where it comes out, it's inspiring, and then everyone copies it, step 2, and then step 3 it's kind of starts to fade out and people aren't interested anymore because we've seen all these copies. And then the final step is either the genre dies or that type of story dies, or it reinvents itself. And usually parody and kind of making fun of itself, that's where it comes into play. So Terminator 2, in a lot of ways, it's 91 when that comes out, and it has this element of, we've had 7 years of action movies, and especially the actor Arnold Schwarzenegger being this bigger than life action hero with these catchphrases. So it's very much kind of, it takes itself seriously, but it also plays on a lot of the expectations of what this movie is, the Terminator franchise, and then who the actor is. So he kind of gets the glasses right away. I mean, why would you, let's say if you go into the story, why would someone program this T-800 to grab glasses? And like, okay, in the first movie you had sunglasses, so you must get human clothes, but then you also must have sunglasses. There's no reason to do it except to give a nod to the story. Here, but again, talk about that in Terminator 2. Oh, such a great scene here. He'll find her. That's what he does. That's all he does. Oh, it's so he stops and it's great. The doctor's fascinated by it. And then we get his point of view here. I can make a career out of this guy. So here, it takes itself very seriously. There's no self-referential jokes or anything like that. The whole 90s sarcasm, Generation Next, grunge sort of movement, the Scream movies and all that kind of stuff hasn't happened yet. It's still very serious because this is new. The Terminator's such a new idea, or maybe not the newest of ideas, because if you look at the credits, you'll see there's credit being paid to Harlan Ellison, who actually sued. I don't know if it was James Cameron or just whoever owns the right to the Terminator movies in the late 90s, early 2000s, because James Cameron said that the idea was inspired by some Outer Limits episodes that Harlan Ellison had written, which are amazing episodes. They're really great. One is about a soldier from the future that comes back trying to kill someone. I haven't seen it in a bunch of years, so I don't know the exact story, but it basically has it's like these two soldiers from the future who are fighting each other. I think they're both human, or maybe one of them is a robot. And then they kind of learn the lessons when they're in the present moment. It's kind of goofy because like they go to some like Leave It to Beaver house, and then they kind of fight amongst the family. But again, the idea there, and then Demon with a Glass Hand, about this guy from the future who is the savior of the human race. See those two episodes, Outer Limits, Demon with the Glass Hand especially. So this was inspired by some ideas from Harlan Ellison. Here's the classic dialogue moment of the movie. Schwarzenegger says, "I'll be back." I guess the original line was, "I'll be right back." But, it's filmed perfectly, just a close-up of the face. But it's not done, again, it's dialogue porn. It's not there to make us turn to each other in the theater and say, "Oh my God, that's the line I'm going to remember." It just organically happened as soon as that, this movie becomes a hit, everyone's saying, "I'll be back" for everything. Again, just as a movie can be created by inspiration of like a zeitgeist of what's going on, the artist kind of picking up on what we're all feeling but maybe not thinking, not able to put into words. This line comes out of an organic process, because the character is a robot and he's just going to say lines that are very straightforward. He's not going to have any kind of like Groucho Marx, winking at the camera. He's just going to say, "I'll be back" in his voice. Which you can also ask, why is the Terminator talk like he's from Austria, why doesn't he just have a little more, less recognizable accent? And we have Terminator vision here. And we actually hear how the Terminator hears his environment. So again, the line, it came about naturally. Here's what he wants in the moment. "Okay, I'll be right back," and he comes back. So if you're writing out there, please just don't pay attention to us in the audience. Give us a complete world. Let us choose the lines of dialogue that are going to be memorable. And what happened before? Kyle Reese told all these police officers that he's going to come back, he'll waste everyone in here, and he'll get her. And what do we have? We have a payoff of that setup. And this is like one of the ultimate tests of just how strong this guy is. He takes out a whole police station. So it's he is unstoppable. How do you protect her if a whole station of cops can't do the job with machine guns and all the body armor and all this kind of stuff? And then of course you got the music, you got the low angles, and remember the entire previous sequence of Reese being interrogated. There's Schwarzenegger with the low angle, and just the leather jacket. It's such a great outfit. It look at the shotgun, all that. Just the sound effects, great. Just all the sound of the bullets, the sound of the guns, just add to the whole experience. But Reese was talking about Schwarzenegger, talking about the Terminator, the entire time, building him up, right? It's just building up how powerful he is and how you can't stop him. And what does he do? He comes into the station and he pays off what was set up there. So, if you really want to create a villain or a bad guy that we remember, he or she is awesome when they're on screen, and he or she are always being talked about. Hannibal Lecter, Darth Vader, the Wicked Witch of the West. All of them go through that process of being talked about while they're off screen. There's also an old movie with Orson Welles. I think it was called The Third Man, I want to say, from like the 50s, late 40s, 50s. Harry Lime, he plays a character called Harry Lime. I want to say it's called The Third Man. And I'm not giving anything away, but the entire movie, Orson Welles' character is talked about. They just talk about him all the time for like an hour and a half. And that was something that he said, that if you want to play a larger than life character or a memorable character, have everyone talk about him for the entire movie and have him only be in a few scenes. So, and I love the synthesizer, right? This is the early 80s, so synth new wave kind of music was just about to be born from like disco and punk and rock, 70s rock and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't seem dated. It's got that whole element of like Skynet, that futuristic. This score is very so well put together because you incorporate modern day kind of tones, but also this future, this robotic Terminator kind of gears of his body kind of thing, but also this I don't know, it's just something in the air about technology. It really works. Now, what are we going to have here? We're going to have, after another intense action sequence, we're going to have another character, window character connecting to the audience moment. That confession cam character. Here's how Kyle feels about the future and about her and what John Connor told him about her and all this kind of stuff. And now she's going through this process of imagining this future because she's a believer now. She's absolutely a believer that this thing is out there, that this future can happen, that she's the mother of this savior. And then this is probably my favorite flashback coming up, where Kyle, where the Terminator, he sees how he infiltrates, and there's just this great shot with the Terminator kind of throwing off the little coat and just whipping off this gun and just lasering everybody. The mood is awesome in that. I hope they pick that up in Terminator Salvation T4. But just to quickly finish up on Arnold Schwarzenegger, I know I'm kind of jumping on a lot of different areas here, but hopefully this conversation, this movie night, ideas are kept track of just like the characters here. And if I cut away from one idea, I'm hopefully that's a setup, and I'm gonna pay it off. Come back. So if at the end of this I miss talking about something, please send me an email, post a comment, and let me know what I forgot to talk about, and I can mention in the Terminator 2 commentary. With Schwarzenegger, I mean, this movie just totally catapults him into superstardom and establishes, his Hollywood legend. It's such a great. Let's just talk about very quickly. The original idea here was that Kyle, that Michael Biehn, who another great actor that I kind of wish had a bigger career than he had. He's so awesome in Aliens, and he's also in The Abyss. Working with James Cameron a couple times there. He's just, he just plays these characters really well. But originally his character was going to be the Terminator. The idea being that Skynet wouldn't make a robot that stands out. If he's supposed to be this infiltrating robot, what would be the logical thing? The logical thing would be, well, he looks like everybody else. He's, skinny, quiet, and, you can't pick him out of a crowd. Which is something that came back to play in Terminator 2, where the T-1000 is skinnier. It's kind of like the original version that the idea would have been. But Cameron, after meeting with Schwarzenegger, they kind of realized that, just, again, Schwarzenegger in the late 70s, early 80s, even though he hadn't become a huge star, he was really well known for being like Mr. Universe, the huge bodybuilder. And the 80s, if you can go back to look at music videos, I forget the exact video, but there's some famous, I can't remember her name, but she's kind of like in, the workout gear, and it's just this whole culture of body perfection. There's this need to look great, whereas like in the 60s and the 70s, it was really celebrated if you didn't cut your hair, if you, had hair everywhere, beards, long hair for guys especially. No one was really expected to be these sculpted mannequins. It was really rebellion against the late 50s and early 60s of kind of conformity. You have to have the suit on and all of corporate culture, really. So by the 80s, there's this kind of I really want to stop the line of thought there, because here Sarah really has her first kind of changing moment as a character. She fully believes now what's going to happen, and now she's battling against it. Do I look like I'm tough? Do I look like I can do it? And again, a great character moment. They're really fighting. These window character moments are not supposed to just be, oh, we're nice to each other. It's, hey, I got to convince you of something. I got to convince you of something. It's kind of a battle. So she's she now believes him, but she doesn't want this responsibility, and she doesn't think she can fight against this Terminator and be a leader in the future. So it's also this nice little moment. But just in terms of like the 80s really become this kind of, you hear all these stories about Wall Street and just kind of the people who were hippies and flower childs back in the 60s and 70s. Now in the 80s they became kind of like these greedy yuppies, where it was all Wall Street and Porsches and just looking good. So Schwarzenegger was really this, and really what's his name, Sylvester Stallone. It was always kind of the battle, right? Those two represented like the buff bodies, the big muscles, and that kind of got popular during that decade. So Schwarzenegger is he just catches the zeitgeist. He's the perfect guy, perfect person at the right time to represent what we value. And this movie just again, James Cameron knew what he was doing. I guess there's some story where he drew Schwarzenegger's face. He's a really good artist, and he kind of painted the half Terminator, half Schwarzenegger face. I think you can find it online if you search Schwarzenegger Terminator. And Schwarzenegger was reluctant to play a bad guy. Just like today, it's no big actor wants to be a bad guy. But there are cases where it works, where Anthony Hopkins made his career off of playing Hannibal Lecter. And unfortunately, Heath Ledger would have had a amazingly superstar career after playing the Joker, which he was recognized for. Another good example of a character that on screen is intimidating, but when he's not in the scenes, Batman and everybody else are talking about the Joker. It makes them stronger, makes them bigger than life. So this movie, James Cameron again has that sense of what audiences want, but also unique, inspired stories where it probably would have made more sense to have a skinnier Terminator, but when you want to talk about what works on screen, Schwarzenegger was the right choice, and you just can't imagine it working any other way. Which is why T2 works so well, because now the bad guy has become the good guy. It's another genius move. And here's the flashback. Again, it's from the point of view. And that's a great little cue there, where the dogs are the test. The dogs are the way that we know if it's a Terminator or not. You don't need to say it out loud. You just give us the sense of, okay, what's the visual, and we put the pieces together. And again, there's no dialogue here. We just get this kids playing rebels, and instead of cowboys and Indians, I guess they'd play like human rebels versus Skynet or whatever the game would be. But it's just great. I mean, how are they eating these? It's like the spoon is like another piece of metal, and the TV is just it's just a fire. They're trying to stay warm. There might be a little bit of a social commentary there too, but I think there's some kind of story I heard in terms of when tribes used to listen to story. Obviously hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, no TV or anything. So, in the caves you'd have the fire around, and everyone would gather around the fire and kind of see the images, use that to kind of light the fire of the mind. So you can kind of say that movies today, we gather in these caves again, and our fire is the screen. It's this light that comes from the back of the theater, and it sets on fire the front of the theater, and we have the imagination and everything that experiencing these stories. So here's the Terminator. I love that he just takes that off and starts gunning everyone down. Just a simple action sequence, and just the cuts here are great. And then again, another shot of him killing someone, and we don't see the carnage with the dogs here. Anytime an animal gets killed on screen, that's probably the cheapest, fastest way to make us hate someone on screen. Just make them, do something horrible to an animal, and they're a villain in our mind. And I love how each of these sequences, they really kind of end where we don't see how Kyle survived this. He was in the car and it started on fire and it just cut away. Just a nice, I love that moment there too. And then it ends with the picture of Sarah burning. I love that shot there with the eyes lit up with the light in the back. Such a great moment. And then just a great payoff here where we see at the end of this movie, she's going to take the picture that Kyle later in the future is holding on to. And then we have a great little dissolve here where she's now the flashback, or this flash forward, may or may not have happened because it's from her point of view. And then here we have some confirmation of her dog comment. But now that comes from her point of view, fades out on her, where earlier in the car it was Kyle's point of view. And that's something that Terminator Salvation needs to have, and the Terminator 3 didn't really have, and that kind of hurt it, where we need that character's point of view, the journey that they're going on. If we can't identify with someone, we're just, on a roller coaster watching the scenery go by. We're not really experiencing something emotionally. And then I love how the Terminator has gone back here to, and then again, looks way too fake right there. I love how the flies are on the face just to confirm that, he doesn't care about that stuff. Look at this character, just this guy knocking on the door. You see him for 30 seconds and you know what kind of a landlord slash janitor he is. And this is just a nice funny moment, but the Terminator's a learning computer and he's picked out the appropriate response. Another great, memorable moment in terms of dialogue. So now we're really seeing the Terminator just flowing in terms of his operation. We know he's going to go to see her mother, and that's a nice little funny moment there. That's done a lot of times in movies where I think like Spielberg always does that. There was I can't remember what movie it was, War of the Worlds or something, where there's a shot of the robots doing something. Was it that one? Where there's always just like a kid or someone else watching something happen to you can always cut to their reaction, cut to their face to give us a little bit of a laugh. I definitely know Spielberg produced Transformers, and Michael Bay had that moment where Optimus and I already forget the name of the robot, Barricade maybe, they're fighting on the highway, and the kid is in the car with his mom, and they kind of fight past him, and so we always get a laugh from that. Same thing in The Dark Knight, where during the underground kind of race or whatever it is, Batman starts blowing all the cars out of the way. He's on the motorcycle, on the bat cycle, and the two kids are like in their car parked, just pretending they have guns, like shooting at the cars, and the cars start blowing up. So you could do that scene without that, but you put the kids in there and it adds a little bit of a comedy moment. So here Kyle's going to start training Sarah on how to be a fighter. And she's going to make the fatal mistake, which makes sense to us. It's in terms of writing a story, it's like, okay, how is the Terminator, you could just imagine, how is the Terminator going to find them if they're definitely, they've gotten away, and there's really no logical way for him to figure out where they're at. Well, Sarah as a person would be worried about her mom, and so she's going to call them out. I love the visuals here. We don't need to see the Terminator arrive and take out the mother. You just see the smoke, the door with the fist. We know what he's capable of, and then we've heard him imitate human voices. So we cut to, it's just such a great shot with the glasses on still. And then and we just feel, man, this thing is so ruthless. It killed her mother, and now it knows where she's at. And we cut back to the normal voice. Where's your address? Now that sets a ticking clock in motion, right? Because now it's a setup where the beginning of it, Terminator's objective, find out where Sarah's at. At the end, he knows now he's on the way. So it's Big Bear wherever she's at. So it's going to be a little bit of a drive. I think earlier when she was at the police station, they mentioned how long of a drive it would be. So now we're just sitting in the theater like, okay, or just watching this wherever. Okay, they don't have much time, but they don't know it. So we're on edge. And then just to confirm it, just in case, we didn't know it from the end of that previous scene, he's on the motorcycle on the way. So that ticking clock, that the train is back on the tracks heading towards them. And so he's going to teach her how to make the bombs here. And, we're tense. We know something they don't. And we're just like, okay. It's the classic Alfred Hitchcock thing where he shows us the bomb under the seat or under the table, and we're just like, okay, it's going to go off soon, and come on, characters, figure out that there's something going on. And it's just it's a setup that's leading to a payoff, and we can't stop watching. Right now, if there was a commercial break, we would stay glued to our sets because we want to know what happens when the Terminator arrives there. And again, we have action sequence. We have some characters pursuing this objective, and now we go to a window character confession cam kind of a moment where we connect with these people. And now there's going to be such a gentle 80s style lovemaking scene here. But it's born out of these characters connecting with each other, where she kind of feels his pain, and she learns he hasn't been with a woman ever, which would make sense because he's in a time of war. So it's just, in terms of Terminator Salvation, I'm just really hoping that this kind of element of the story isn't forgotten, because on the one hand, look, I mean, if this movie didn't have the exoskeleton and all the awesome effects, yeah, of course we wouldn't remember it. It would just be a Lifetime movie about some woman who, some crazy guy met her and told her he was from the future and they fell in love and all this. But without the great effects, it doesn't stand out. But if you just make it all effects, it really loses some of the meaning. It's just, do you really want to watch a reel of great boundary pushing effects, or do you want to watch people going through something, battling through something, because we only have one life. We can't experience all these different possibilities that are out there. So what do? We keep going to movies or reading stories about different things that could be experienced. We explore humanity through fiction. And this is just a nice moment, and it's really characters revealing themselves and us connecting, and that's again why we root for them and why we fear the Terminator here. So hopefully John Connor, again, and this in terms of the idea that the Terminator is always talked about, and that kind of builds him up. Terminator Salvation is basically the payoff of a 6-hour, 3-movie setup that John Connor is going to be the savior of humanity. So Christian Bale better, have enough characterization to work with. Let's hope that the writers and everyone involved with Salvation had paid enough attention not only to what worked in terms of the effects in the first 3 movies, but also what worked in terms of the people. John Connor, this is his, Return of the Jedi, if you will. Luke struggled to be a Jedi in the first 2 movies. He kind of went on this journey. And now in the 3rd movie, we want to see him become who everyone told us he would be. And here all we get is just John Connor this, John Connor that. He's going to be awesome. He's going to save us from everything. So please, please, deliver in the 4th installment. And this is nice. This is a nice moment. Again, any kind of dramatic moment with characters, what we see of characters in any kind of moment is just like an iceberg, right? We see the surface of it, but below the surface there could be miles of ice. There's this huge landmass that's under there. And the more that people struggle with each other, the more you kind of reveal what's beneath the surface. It's just like anything in life where you pass someone that you kind of know, hey, how you doing today? Oh, I'm fine. Things are good. But when you're with your friends, or if you were forced to have a confrontation with that person, you would discover more things. You'd have to go into your own reserves, and you might be pleasant during just normal interaction, but what one way to think of it is like, what does it take for you to blow up? What does it take for you to get angry? And then when you do get angry, what kind of way are you fighting with someone? So every character is like an iceberg, and what we see at first is only the surface, but hopefully through the rest of the movie we're really kind of digging down deep and seeing the rest of them. And it's the writer's, filmmaker's job to create that, to make sure that there is something more below the surface. So now that nice little softcore moment is over, we cut back to and there's this great, awesome quote with Leonard Nimoy. I was watching something related to Star Trek, And there's the dog. That pays off, right? We had the setup earlier. The dog lets them know that the Terminator's here. Where Leonard Nimoy said something like, Star Trek the series worked because if you're 12, you can watch it and there's these, cool effects or interesting visuals going on. But when you watch it again at age 25 or 35 or whatever, you start to pick up on these other themes. And that's, I think right now that's the battle. Let's hope that movies can get, packed kind of like, densely as atoms or whatever. And on the one level, yeah, because I remember watching this again when I'm 11 or 12, and this is just, such great action. Love the Terminator, love the way that he behaves, and just really intimidating and great action here. Explosions, love that. But then watching it 10, 15 years later, you're like, oh wow, there's these themes of like apocalypse and, humans creating technology, and are we aware of what that means, and are we in control of it, or, are we just a step in some greater entity's evolution? Went from human to robotic, and there's just all these great ideas there, and you start to pick up on different levels. So let's just hope that these levels are being incorporated. Let's hope that they're always consciously being put into films, because the audience does not have ADD, and we are smarter than fifth graders. So treat us that way, please. So another great action sequence here. It's very simple, but then at the same time, we just feel the tension. The music's really helping with that again. And then we get the payoff from the setup earlier of, characters making bombs. So later in the movie, those bombs are going to go off, just like the famous Chekhov writer's quote where he talked about a play, and he said that if a gun is introduced in the first act, it has to go off somewhere in the third act, or at least by the third act. So love these moments here and it's just cool because it's homemade, so you're fighting the Terminator, you can't turn to the authorities, and there we go. Oh, it doesn't work. So great action sequence, and it's not done to just, I don't know, blow us away. It does really give us something different, but it's just part of the story. It's what would really happen in that moment. These characters are living through it. Pay attention to it, not that we, the audience, are watching these characters. No one in the movie should be aware that there's an audience. You just go about your business, just do what you would do, and obviously it's orchestrated, but is done in such a way that there's a genuineness, there's an integrity to it. It's like, okay, finally here they've love that. It's just great that they don't get away, and then notice how he was sliding, right? When he was sliding, there were sparks coming from him. Nice little detail. It's just little details that convince us of the reality of the story. And of course, you can't stop the Terminator. He's an unstoppable force. And the truck. Love that the truck runs him over. And here we have another memorable line, right? The get out. But it's another example of a line not being said because we're going to be sitting here watching it wanting to remember something. It's just what the Terminator would normally do. Another thing to notice here. Oh, really quick, we have the line coming up. I always just like to hear that. And the Terminator doesn't, he's not knocking people out or anything. I mean, it's a Terminator, so it's killing everyone it meets. And then you can tell it's just injured. Just a great visual cue. Not my leg is injured. Get out. And then you can see more of the face. We got some good effects going on here, where you can see the flesh starting to reveal the skull, the metallic skull. I never really noticed this until now, but the structure of Terminator 2, it's very, very close to T1 here. I mean, obviously with the opening in terms of the two, the savior, the rescuer, the protector, and then the Terminator both going after the same person at the beginning of the movie. But here, the ending of Terminator 1 is really close to the ending of Terminator 2, where you have the chase, the chase on the road, and then the Terminator in a truck. In the second one, you have him in the truck carrying the liquid nitrogen, and here you have him carrying just whatever it is, just fuel. So later it's going to explode and kind of burn all the skin off of his body. So very, very similar kind of thing, but it's just a good example of, okay, the structure can be the same, but the details are different. And that's what's really important. There's this kind of saying again that everything's been done, right? That there's a beginning, middle, and end to every story, and you can't really change that structure, but the variations are what make life interesting. It's all in the details. So again, both movies you have the truck. He's driving the truck at the end, and here it's going to explode and kind of burn all the skin off his body, and you think that it's over. And this is classic horror movie 101, right? Where the good guys think that they've killed the bad guy, the villain, the killer. But of course they haven't. The villain always has the last burst of energy to go after them again. Here there's really two times where the truck explodes, and then later when the Terminator's blown in half and Sarah thinks it's over, it kind of gets back up and it chases after her. Something that's even done in T3. So there's a lot of homages, a lot of just references to other movies going on, and that kind of really deters. Really takes away from the possibility of originality that those movies could have had. Here, it's being done for the first time, so it's all new, and it kind of, I guess it sets the blueprint or the groundwork, but, it doesn't need to be copied. It doesn't need to be followed. But I guess you could say, well, why did James Cameron copy the structure and just, put different people and different types of effects in its place? Well, I guess, you can have the skeleton, you can have the overall, just like the human body, right? I mean, we all have the same kind of structure. We have skeleton and skin and the organs and all this kind of stuff, but thankfully we're all different. We look different and we act different. So it's kind of just like a metaphor for life. I mean, even though that we all have the same stuff, we're made up of the same stuff, we can have a nice variety. We can be different and make life a little more interesting that way. So this is something that James Cameron did also with Aliens, where he basically went back to Alien and took that same kind of basic structure. I mean, I watched Alien first, the second one, Aliens, when I was like 12, kind of right around the time I saw this movie, and then I remember seeing Alien like a year later and thinking, wow, Alien is a lot like Aliens, and just kind of in terms of towards the end, everything. She's the survivor and she's got to fight the final alien. She's got to blow it up and kind of, in a pod going to sleep at the end again. So, and then how everyone kind of gets picked off. Alien is another great example of horror sci-fi horror. So, there's a lot of inspiration going on there in terms of James Cameron maybe having seen those films. He obviously has been quoted as saying that watching Star Wars inspired him to make movies where just the kind of the possibilities that were open on screen in terms of storytelling and effects really woke him up and just made him say, that's what I want to do with my life. So, similarities to other movies are fine, but, you can say whatever, it's copying or stealing, but let's just call it inspiration. Let's call it, okay, fine, here's something that's been done once, now let's try to do it better. So the Terminator coming out of the fire here, we've got about 15 minutes left. I'm at about 1 hour, 29 minutes, and 56 seconds into the movie. So I hope we're roughly in sync. Doesn't matter, though. Anyway, so it looks like they've killed the Terminator, and in a second he's going to get up, and that's pretty much exactly the same thing as Terminator 2, where the liquid nitrogen has frozen him, but he melts and he gets back up. So again, same structure, but a different variation on it, and it works both ways. And then, of course, later on where they're in the factory, right? Both movies are in a factory. They end in a factory, and here she compresses the Terminator, and the other one they put him into the pit. I like how the music, too. The music cues us, right? All right, they've did it. We're at about 90 minutes into the movie. Okay, 90-minute movie feels like it's complete. Feels like a good way to kill the Terminator, but James Cameron, again, great movie maker, knowing that the audience needs more. The audience has come to see Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, and we've been building up this Terminator, this machine, So we need to deliver on it. And great shot here. And the music accordingly changes, right? And Kyle knows what they look like. So he kind of, and then this great little, the pan up, close up on the face. Wow. In 84, I mean, this was, again, we had Star Wars with R2D2 and that kind of stuff. But here, I mean, it's a skeleton, you know, there's nowhere to hide an actor on the inside. It's not just some guy in a suit. We kind of have the animatronic sort of 50 or the 50s kind of monster movie action going on here, like Clash of the Titans sort of long shots. It does look kind of cheesy in some moments, but you just have to appreciate the ingenuity. And now we have the final sequence going on here. Final two sequences, really. Love the music, right? And then that shot there of the Terminator in the hallway kind of looks very, a little bit cheesy, kind of fake. But on the other hand, you're like, hey, I believe it. Looks good enough. Here, this is obviously, I don't know what the terminology would be, but kind of the overlap shot, right? Terminator filmed by himself, and then Sarah and Reese are filmed in the foreground. Then you kind of overlap. And then just love how this scene comes to fruition, right? You just kind of turn everything on. Machines everywhere, and it's kind of a metaphor, right? It's ironic, I guess, because the machines in this moment are protecting them from the machine. And there is going to be a scene on the DVD. I love how Kyle's hurt too. You know, he's the protector, but he's not indestructible. And he's been hurt by the, I think, shrapnel from the explosion. He's tired. And now we see Sarah, right? On your feet, soldier. And she's become the strong one. She's she's gone through this transformation. And that's great. You know, James Cameron tends to write strong female characters in all his movies. You can look at this, you can look at Aliens, where Sigourney Weaver as Ripley in the first movie, in Alien, she really didn't have that much to do. She was kind of just the same throughout. And then the second one, I mean, she just undergoes such a character journey. She's really this strong woman. And she was nominated for an Oscar in that movie. So, you know, a sci-fi action film where the main heroine, the actor, gets nominated for an Oscar. And then The Abyss, Mary Elizabeth Master Antonio is a great strong character there. And then you have, of course, Sarah Connor in Terminator 2. And then you have Jamie Lee Curtis in True Lies. And, of course, Rose from Titanic. So James Cameron definitely recognizes that females are often disrespected in movies. You know, they're just a TNA for us to look at. And this is just a classic, you know, final scene of a horror movie. This is Michael Myers chasing Jamie Lee Curtis through the house. This is Freddy chasing Nancy. But at the same time, it's great sci-fi, it's great action. So it's a nice hybrid. And then such an awesome... You know, I love that moment too, where all you see is Terminator's head, basically, right? But you hear the foot dragging. Such a great example of how sound effects can fill in the blanks for us. Because, you know, if we were to think outside the box right here, think outside the film box, you know that that's just the Terminator being dragged on some kind of dolly or someone carrying it. You know, underneath there's people. But because of that sound effects, we're brought into the 100% reality of that moment. And this is the final confrontation we've all been waiting for. Man versus machine here. And we know Kyle's going to die. And, you know, I really like how there isn't like a nostalgic moment here. It's just, hey, I got to protect you. This is what goes on in the moment of the story. He's fighting him with one arm. And it looks real enough. I mean, I guess if you had more effects. Today, I guess this would be remastered, right? I probably shouldn't have said that. Maybe in 5 or 6 years, we'll have the remastered with new effects Terminator 1 released to theaters. Okay, so now we really think that this is the end. The Terminator's been destroyed, right? The bomb in his gut. And then the foot, we see the leg there. I like this moment here, too, where Sarah Connor's slowly kind of reveals that she's been wounded. She's in pain. And even though this moment focuses on her, I know that when I first saw this in the background, I was just like, show the Terminator again. I bet he's not dead yet. And of course, there needs to be the final lunge, right? The final. If this is a bad horror movie, it's the character standing over the villain, right? Okay, I think he's dead. And then of course the jump up and cue the music. But this is a really nice moment here, in a sad way, because she's going to go over to Kyle and see that he's dead. And I like that there wasn't like Kyle still barely alive and Sarah, I just want to say that I love you and you should continue to fight and train John. No, he's dead. They didn't get to say their goodbyes. Life is cruel. This war with the machines is cold, and there isn't any time you know, to talk to each other before we die. And for us, the audience, it's like we really got to know Kyle, so we're sad. And then the music, right? It's all just like, I don't know, like the Terminator scraping his nails against the Terminator board in the Terminator school, right? It's metal on metal. This totally shocks you. And this is just great, the heroine trying to escape the villain, the horror movie guy trying to get his victim. Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger. And it's just, I like the contrast here where she's using technology to get away from technology. And it's just, what does it take to stop this thing? This is, a little bit convenient maybe that it kind of gets to this moment where it's in a press so she can finally stop it. But that's what a movie is. A movie is, we go into the agreement of suspending our disbelief. Okay, we know it's going to be kind of this grand design by the filmmaker of things falling into place, but as long as it seems like it could happen that way, we're fine with it. The thing that, looking at the other movies that have come out after this, obviously T2 takes the structure, a lot of similar things going on, but with a nice variety of new details. T3 really does nothing new, and for me that's the reason it fails. I definitely want to talk a lot about that during that one, but here it's all new, and here we go. Final line of the movie, action line. Well, it's kind of dialogue porn here, but let's enjoy it. Here we go. I love it. And just that editing there was really good, where it's cutting from her to the Terminator to the buttons. Just classic, Hitchcockian kind of tension, where she doesn't hit the button right away. He's getting closer. He inches closer to the throat. She's getting closer to the button. Back and forth, back and forth. The music, making us feel like she's not going to do it in time. And then the eye, right? The source of life, the symbol of the Terminator's life. That's what you focus on. How do we know a Terminator that can't bleed, that can't indicate to us that he's hurt or anything, that doesn't feel any pain, that isn't going to say any kind of final line of death because it feels, life is cruel. No. The eye. Great visual, again. This movie bases everything in visuals first, dialogue second. And, that line, it felt a little bit forced in terms of Sarah, because she's not the character that would say that. Kyle, every line that he said, you would feel, okay, he would really say that because he wants to protect her. Come with me if you want to live. It won't stop, it doesn't feel pain or remorse. And then, of course, the Terminator, every line he says is done because he's a computer. So that might be the one line in the movie where it feels out of character. But, you kind of root for her, so it is a movie after all, right? So it's done well. Now we get the payoff from the picture at the end, and we've been through a strong emotional journey, a lot of action. We're still feeling tense, and we need to know what happened. Okay, she's pregnant, so we know that John Connor. That's kind of the nice little twist, right? And you don't want to look too much into that logic in terms of what do they call that? The grandfather paradox. How can Kyle be the father of John if he belongs to a future that hasn't happened yet, right? So when the chicken or the egg kind of thing. Just okay, we'll accept it. It made for a great story, so we can go along with it. Now on the DVD, there's the uncut footage or the deleted scenes of Sarah getting put into the ambulance, and the original ending had a wider shot where she's being put into the ambulance in front of Cyberdyne Systems. So in part two, later when Sarah, John, the T-800, and Miles Dyson, right? I think that's his name, Miles Dyson. When they all go to Cyberdyne Systems to destroy everything that leads to Skynet, you can look back here and say it was something that James Cameron had envisioned. That there was an ending made here where we reveal that Cyberdyne Systems was the place where the final battle of this movie took place, and they would have discovered the skull, the endoskeleton, and the chip, and the arm, and the leg, and all that kind of stuff. So it all syncs up. It all makes sense. And then we end the movie here on an emotional note. It doesn't end with today it seems like most movies would be like ending where Sarah pressed the button and said, "You're terminated, effer." On a cool final line, kind of this sarcastic sort of I'm a badass sort of attitude going on. But no, everything that's just happened, this whole experience of, wow, the future isn't going to be as nice as we all thought it was going to be. Just that kind of mood, that tension, that foreboding future, it all comes together here, where Sarah is the only one on Earth who knows that this is going to happen. And she's dealing with this whole notion of, okay, well, what do we do? And there's a great final line here where the storm's coming, right? He said there's a storm coming. And she says, I know. Great final line. And the music, right? The music, great variety. It's her emotions. The music has gone from there's been so many different tones here. We had the T-1000 foreboding. We had her kind of innocence. We had the action elements of the score. And then there was this kind of bittersweet sort of tone going on right here. And then as she moves towards the clouds in the distance, right, a great visual of the future approaching. Acknowledgments to the work of Harlan Ellison. There's the new title that was not in there before, I believe. Or maybe it was. I don't know. I read something that said that it was after the movie came out that became an issue. But that's just such a great visual. You leave feeling that there's going to be more to this universe. And you leave thinking, wow, I really want more of this. I want to explore this idea again. And even, let's say the sequel had never been made. Within itself, you get the sense that, okay, this was a complete story. That the humans will win. That the cycle kind of, a cycle is complete where now John will be born. The Terminator didn't accomplish its mission. And, there's going to be a lot of suffering and a war, but in the end, Skynet will fall. So on its own, it works fine, but there's also the pieces logically put in place for the remains of the T-800 being found by Cyberdyne Systems, and you could see a sequel happening. That's great. So, this movie, why do we still remember it 25 years later? Well, number one, because it was new. It was different. In 1984, again, for me, the movie that had kind of challenged science fiction and pushed the boundaries of effects and everything was definitely Star Wars. Those three movies, that original trilogy was something that just raised the bar. But it seemed that no one was willing to step up. Go back from Star Wars is 1977 and Return of the Jedi is 83, right? So that's 6 years. 6 years, 2 movies. What other sci-fi movies during that period of time stepped up to the plate and really tried to challenge us and say, hey, let's really try to invent some really imaginative storytelling on screen. Let's push the bounds of effects and let's base it in character. Let's make sure that these people have a journey. Now, the people here in Terminator don't have a journey as strong as Luke. I mean, that's Star Wars, and especially Empire Strikes Back. It's probably the ultimate example of the blending of of classical kind of Hollywood, classical cinematic storytelling where you have character that wants something, that's in pursuit of an objective, and it's also an emotional experience. And then blend that with, the later technological advances where you have effects that can bring these fantastic images to life. If you can get the meshing of those two going, if you can really do both of them well in the same movie, you can have something that's going to survive forever. That's going to make your top 100 lists of the last not only 100 years but 1,000 years. So, in terms of sci-fi, that's when you look at Alien, you look at Star Wars, you look at 2001. Um, you know, 2001, no one really remembers the first, let's say, hour and a half of it. Everyone remembers the final stage, right, with Hal. And Hal is the character that goes through an emotional journey. That's the character that we remember the most. So while, the effects in that's another movie, 2001, where the effects were pushed so far, where we really thought, wow, we're in space. There's no way that this could have been faked. Is there really a space station up there? It's so real. So those movies are kind of these benchmarks, these towering mountains, these skyscrapers, if you will, and they dare you to build a bigger and better skyscraper. And Terminator, while it didn't have, let's say, as many effects, and it didn't bring you all these different alien creatures, it created a complete universe, and it created a totally new, memorable screen image in terms of the Terminator, with the exoskeleton, with this metallic killer, this assassin, and it made us believe that. So the effects were amazing. Stan Winston would go on to, head up Terminator 2 with the liquid metal with the CGI and usher in the CGI age, which he would later perfect in Jurassic Park. He would become probably the top effects supervisor master of the last 30 years. But it was, Terminator that kind of raised the bar again in terms of that. So story was great. It catapulted Schwarzenegger into stardom. It gave James Cameron a career. And even Linda Hamilton, she had a pretty awesome career in terms of TV. Beauty and the Beast. Go ahead, do a search on it. Kind of cheesy series, but she also had a prosperous career as a result of this. So, Terminator 1 did a lot of things in a fresh way, in a new way. It was imaginative, and that's why we remember it. That's why it's on our list of, best movies overall ever. And again, the major reason is the villain. It's the Terminator, it's Schwarzenegger. I think on the AFI 100 list, the Terminator's definitely in the top 10. I don't really remember where he placed, but, when you have such a bigger-than-life character like that, he's going to be remembered. So, if we go over the last 25 years, I would say Terminator, then Hannibal Lecter in 1990, and then the Joker in 2008. The three most memorable villains of the last 25 years. So leave your thoughts in the comments section if I'm forgetting someone. Who else was a memorable villain? But, again, any story, any battle, any drama in a movie is only as good as the opponent. So I think that's it for now. Terminator 2 will be next, and a lot of stuff to talk about in that one. I will be watching the special edition of that, so if you want to get a DVD, go out and rent that. Get the special edition. It has all the deleted scenes from the theatrical version added in, so it's like an extra 10 minutes or something like that. They're nothing too important, if you don't have the special edition. It's just like these little touches here and there. So a lot to say with that one. The movie itself is about 2.5 hours, and expect the commentary in that one to be about 3 hours. Here we're running around 2 hours. The movie was about an hour and 47 minutes long. So thanks for hanging out. Please let me know what you think in the comments section or drop an email. And let's continue our journey through the universe of the Terminator and see how it took a turn for the worse in part 3. Not the worst movie ever, but didn't really do all it could have, and from what I'm hearing, it didn't improve with Salvation. Okay, so thanks for hanging out. As always, choose your movies wisely. because we're going to get more of what we pay for. And as always, long live good Terminator movies.
Long live good movies.